lift off or implode at any moment. But then right before it does, the tide always seems to subside and recede back to that place where it all regroups and regains its momentum, leaving us a strange and guttural sucking sound coming from the fireplace to let us know that it will be back and you'll all be sorry. All the way down. There's wind in the chimney and a sweet sweat bee drowned in a glass of brandy. A man with a glass of brandy smoking a cigarette and playing solitaire at an antique dining room table. A ghost trapped inside of an ancient grandfather clock, its ectoplasmic breath steaming up the glass on certain moonlit nights. And a sad, sweet little tune playing on an old 78 record player. The kind of tune that, given the mood, makes you want to jump out of the window of a tall building, humming it all the way down. And there, in the corner of the room, an open door showing us a toilet from which a billy goat is currently drinking. Now, how'd that billy goat get in here? It's called Gone. Sometimes it seems that time flies like a cinematically CGI'd slow-motion bullet trail. Or a handful of $100 bills, fresh and warm from the ATM, suddenly taken up by a microburst of wind. Or sparks thrown off a grinder wheel into the face of all our best laid plans, best played hands, our most reasonable and equitable list of demands even. And then, in the middle of one of our typical frantic chase scenes, just shuts down and goes cold, thunk, motionless, indifferent and unresponsive to all our pleas and invectives to hurry the fuck up for Christ Almighty's sake and get a goddamn move on or we're still young already. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And then you turn around and there's a praying mantis on your sleeve and a violin coming from somewhere and a certain quality to the early evening light you somehow had noticed before, and the time is just gone. Sweet tea and wiki, I love it. 1,000-yard stare. It was a hole-in-the-wall kind of place that stank of pine sol, piss, and stale beer, and still had dispensers in the men's room for glow-in-the-dark condoms and French ticklers and other surprise novelty items. And the big monkey behind the bar was named Earl or Jake or Curly, and he kept a sawed-off table leg within reach at all times and gave you that 1,000-yard stare if you dared ask for anything with more than one ingredient. And the jukebox hadn't been changed out in decades, and the lunch special was always the same. Pickled eggs, pork rinds, and hot sauce. Though I got the feeling that nobody ever ate it unless they lost a bet. That's a fill in the bar name. Don't eat the big white men at the bottom of the toilet. Thanksgiving 2020. The wind tonight is a storm gray ocean of savage undertows and alternating currents. And our bellies are full of birds and pigs, and our livers are swollen with the water of life and the blood of the Lord. And to the west of us, an eastbound train flows like a river stirred up by days of rain. And to the east, the stiff skeletons of elm and cedar trees lift and sway their limbs and branches with the dreamy surge and swell of the megachurch faithful. And all the draperies and tapestries of cloud have been drawn back now to show us the shadowy rafters and balustrades of night, all hung and lit with the crystal glitter and glow of cosmic chandelier, beneath which we solemnly puff on cheap cigars and pull from flasks of apricot brandy, tipping one for fallen friends and family, toasting the hope for a better year to come. It's called No, I'm Not Busy at All. It would seem the wind is searching frantically everywhere around town for something it has lost, or hopefully, for all our sakes anyway, merely displaced. And someone is hitching a ride out of town, out by the highway, and somewhere there's a somber man playing a rather convoluted variation of Russian roulette with a pillowcase full of revolvers and a sad radio that isn't doing itself or this guy any favors with its woeful repertoire. Man, spin, click. Radio, spin, click. Man, spin, click. Radio, spin, click, man, spin. Suddenly the fucking phone begins to ring. Try to stole that from the scene in Way of the Gun. Anybody knows that fantastic movie? Hard times, soft money. Ain't it funny how hard cash always goes soft in the face of hard times? So much so you just can't seem to keep a firm hold on the stuff. And the clock just keeps on chopping away at you and all your best laid plans for the foreseeable future. And your whole life can pretty much be summed up, measured out, and quarterly projected upon a screen as an hourly wage. And none of your side gigs or supplemental income schemes ever seem to work out quite right. And living ain't getting any cheaper, and you're working for a man whose secretary don't even know your name. Just another other. Our leaders say we should all try hard to be good little citizens and reach out and begin the healing process of our centuries-old but recently exacerbated cultural rift and try to form some kind of alliance with the legendary white working class, which no one really seems to be able to clearly define, even though so much ink and airtime are devoted to it more and more every voting season before it's forgotten again, and until they're needed next time to hose off and trot out and see once again which political party finally wins the multi-million-dollar media tug-of-war to sway this peculiar demographic via their needs, or if need be, their prejudices, and hopefully bring them into the fold for good. But I really have to wonder about the notion of locating this elusive common ground with a group that seems to proudly, chest and Bible thumpingly define themselves socially and politically by their very ignorance of politics, science, and history, let alone the larger world that exists outside their own and might as well be another planet, which is exactly what they've been led to believe for the last 30 years or so by their church and community leaders and elected local, state, and even national representatives and various alternative media figures with their 24-hour feeding tubes, all of whom appear to be in the process of collectively and publicly shitting themselves and melting down Wicked Witch of the West style at the prospect that even out here, in the ultimate gated community of the Northwestern Hemisphere, they will soon be just another other in a nation of others. It's called Dynamite in Car, turns out to be beef stick, police say. What he thought was dynamite roasting in a locked car with the windows rolled up in late July turned out to be, of all things, a bundle of Slim Jim beef sticks tied together with a length of string, as in snap it to a Slim Jim, Macho Man Randy Savage and all that crap. And it caused him no end of grief in the department for months, even though he'd been king shit a fuck mountain last year for shooting rubber bullets and tear gas into that crowd of college kids and old ladies protesting in the park. His union rep had even taken him out for drinks and a steak dinner. Now, he couldn't get arrested in this town. All right. Get the fuck out of here. This is awesome, by the way, and I think we should put pressure on Dan to fuck the clubs and other places in town. This should be an elite, invite-only monthly poetry fucking club, man. Have you heard about this place? Nah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Put pressure on Dan for something.
Yes.
Speakeasy.
This is called Nothing to Fear here. There's a ghost here residing inside our ancient grandfather clock. Its ectoplasmic breath, or whatever you want to call it, fogging up the glass in which a smiley face has been traced the same time every Friday night, as if to tell us there's nothing to fear here. Just the occasional accompaniment of riotous laughter, right along with the rest of us, if something on the TV is particularly hilarious or someone has told a joke that gets us all going. You get the sense that whoever it is just wants to belong and be part of the fun. Or other times, it's the faint echo of empathetic weeping when sad news has been delivered. And still, every now and then, what sounds like a drunken tumble taken down the old servant stairs in the back, and then a very clear and cantankerous son of a bitch. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Mr. Jason Ryberg. So, his next poet is a last-minute fill-in, but I had the pleasure of seeing this poet a couple years ago on Salina, Kansas, and I had the pleasure of writing a blurb for his second book. So please welcome to the stage, Mr. Tim Tarkelly.
I forgot my beer.
Redo.
So when I'm not writing poetry and being a country music superstar, I teach high school English to kids with much more promising futures than I have. So this poem is just when I've been...
Wait, this is America. I think you're bullshitting us.
Those jokes have to be better.
You'd be surprised.
Well.
This poem is dedicated to them. It was just up on Jupiter Lit Mag. This goes out to my students. It's called the Ode to the Class of 2024. They bring me cupcakes and late homework creased from the careless, apologetic depths of their backpacks. They bring me jokes their brother told them and long-winded confessions that they stayed up late to do what they were supposed to. They bring me stories about friends who are no longer friends, carrying hearts that have been scarred for the very first time, will never pump as much joy as they once did. They bring me questions that are far too personal. News of birthday weekends, of new and sudden foster placements, hallway tears and white-knuckled curses under their breath. They bring me mistakes and poorly shod promises of future success. They bring me their own poems, naked of imagery but overflowing with raw and precocious gut. Words they're too young to know describe their life with dangerous precision. They bring me their dreams and I knight them, these guardians of tomorrow's smiles. I tell them, go forth, conquer until doubt is a smoking corpse on a far distant black pebbled beach. They bring me pens and we hoist their hopes on their sleeves. They bring me to my wit's end, and a frustration that grows only 1 inch taller than their volume. They bring me to supplication, leaving Thanksgiving prayers scribbled in colored ink right under their scores. They bring me to dry-jointed, uncomfortable bouts of half-sleep and unending storms of ibuprofen. They bring me whistling to work each and every morning. Thank you. So this book just came out. It's called On Slip Rigs in Spiritual Growth. This first one I'm going to read is called Tim Eats a Bass. First catch of the season. No need to cry over surprise victories. Creel limit set by trophy hunters who apparently don't have to pay for their own dinner. If I'm being honest, I catch and release 99% of the time. But my oven holds no secrets. Just cooking smells, emotional maturity, and understanding that it was built for a reason. This poem goes out to Jason Ryberg. It's called To Those Who Leave Beer Cans to Float Down the River. I hear y'all chanting America. Its vinyl colors stamped on your bumpers, flimsy arguments about tradition pulled from faded blueprints, the Virginian homes of dead men. It's almost as if you've forgotten the name is attached to a place. God carved these valleys so the Osage could drink, so the earth could carry water to its children. This one's called The Horseshoe Crabs in the Indian River Owe Me an Apology. The serration of an afternoon spent chucking mullet into the wind and coming up empty. If the fish aren't biting, maybe it's because the kids are playing in the water, stepping without looking, planting their pioneer bodies right where they don't belong. So there's a series of poems in here that are like literary or historical figures they take me fishing, and I imagine what that's like. This one's called Melville Takes Me Fishing. We sailed into the storm. The waves breaking at the bow, a chaotic attempt to chip away at darkness. We've been tossed everywhere. The stars swirling above, no landfall to even think of. How will we find our way back? The ocean's equivalent of a bump. I'm almost sent starboard, reaching for anything solid to grab onto. Forget about that, he shouts into the spray. No one ever finds what they're looking for.
Official William Shatner.
This one is called Daytona Beach Pier 2002. I order a grouper sandwich, count the livelihoods tied to the railings. Texture is everything. The give of crisp to the teeth, crunch, tenderness, vinegar cutting through, stinging its name into my palate, leaving words I can only invoice in groans of delight. The windows here aren't clean, but how could they be? All the wind, the water, the sea salt. People are wearing rubber jackets in spite of the sun. Shrimp nets emerge like battle-worn oars, ready to push out, carry us home. The hush puppies alone were worth the trip. Pickled onions were a smart choice. Tied it all together. Most of my poems are really short. I hope that's not a problem. This one, there's also a series of poems that challenge like different ethical questions in fishing, and this one's called Ethics 3. Off Old Highway 50, innovation is a heavy burden. Madmen stoke their fevers with dreams of fire, a stick of dynamite, and a fishing hole that beckons bright lights and spring cleaning. We don't spend enough time acknowledging simple truths. Few people need a reason beyond, I just want to see what happens. Just going to read a couple few more. That's a poet term. Couple few more. This poem is called Postcard to Jason Baldinger. Your appreciation for the prairies, their flint-hewn heights, and astonishing breadth of amber growth is well-grounded. But on your next pass through Kansas, visit the flatlands. Sit on the bank of Big Creek, its carp swirling in the silt, its waters once offered as a drink to Custer's horses, now the proving grounds for lonely souls, to confront the summer heat and listen to the orioles as we try to prime meaning from a harsh summer. This one's called Pineda Blues. Mosquitoes are blasting Wagner, swarming in the combat glow of the propane lantern set too close to our cots. We got up so early to check the crab traps, float in the dark before the tide heads home. Itchy isn't the right word. I want to light the grill back up, lay across the grates, let the sores rise as ashes to settle in the sand. I'm tired, but if the night has been good to us, breakfast will be amazing. This one's called Hemingway Takes Me Fishing. A harpoon in one hand, rum in the other. A sea so calm he has to invent a tempest. Vague threats, worn out tall tales of cabin fever, murderers at high sea. He gets angry that I'm not nervous. As if he'd travel back alone without anyone to hear his tales of sweaty heroism. I'm over old man bravado and its extended metaphors about the threat of nameless death and inability to rise with the tide. This one is about my first time fishing in the Gasconade. It's called Beginner's Mind. Out of my element, my bag of tricks reduced to only their painted plastic forms. It's silly when you think of it. A tray of lures and a child's toy box are no different unless in expert hands and employed in the right conditions. So I shrug off the ruse entirely. Forget all outcomes, just enjoy watching the bobber toss in the current. This one, I don't want to get too emotionally heavy in here, but this is about one of probably the darkest, worst things that have ever happened in my life. It's called The Gorgeous Bass Pro Shop Employee Who Denied My Credit Card Application and Gave Me 2 free hats. First, I'm sorry for noticing. Failure will do that to you. Heighten your worst senses to generate a more accurate picture, the perfect snapshot of rejection. Second, it pains me to see myself how you must see me. Barely a man with an awkward smile, a credit score that feeds with the Placo. Forgo the scripted congeniality, the promise of more explanation in the mail. Just kill me now and set me up with the stuffed fauna or set me free. Click yes, click print, and guide me to the sleeping bag suited for all temperatures. For what it's worth, I would have used this money for good. Real adventures, oiled with bear grease and charted on antique maps. While I can't stake the voyage on my own, thanks for a few moments of your time, for your warmth, for the free hats. This one's called A1A. No one's ever come home from Satellite Beach without bruised heels and a neck that could blush a lobster into shame. They got so much coquina rock submerged in the sand there's almost no room to trip, but we always find a way. Broken toenails, forgotten bait buckets, left dotted up and down Florida's eastern coast. All right, I'm going to read one more. This one is the title poem. It's called On Slip Rigs and Spiritual Growth. It's 10 degrees cooler than I'd like, and the clouds have soured. Gone dark with a gentle but inevitable fury. Who am I to complain? The pond is stocked, and it would be greedy to expect the sky to follow suit, deliver its limits in suitable inches, storms to be released once caught. I'll leave if I need to, but I'm not scared of the rain. I've darkened so much myself, soaked up a host of troubling questions, daily frustrations, and the ever-present laughter of a whole world that seems to have figured it all out. Life itself mounted on the wall for all to see. I keep a patient eye on my line, and my chair isn't as old as it is cheap, slumping in the mud, steadily folding in, but I need it to keep me up, at least until the weather gives, until I get what I came for. There are no answers worth seeking above the water's surface. I've got faith, a whole leaden ounce worth, stalking glory in the mud. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Mr. Tim Tarkelly.
Hey, I believe Dan Wright is reading next. Everybody,
Dan Wright.
Thank you, Jason.
no problem.
Firstly, before I start, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who was writing, everyone who showed up. Thank you so much for making this place, or for making this event such an awesome thing. We had to change the venue a couple times because fuck you, weather.
Right, seriously.
Never trust a weatherman.
It's never rained once.
Yeah. Well, Mark Twain was right. If you don't like the weather in St. Louis, wait 5 minutes.
I've heard that about a lot of places.
Fuck Mark Twain.
Well, I can say that about
He
some
didn't
other
have
things.
to read in this apartment.
He might have read in this apartment. You never know.
You don't know.
George Washington slept a lot of places too.
Including this apartment.
This St. Louis has existed since 1764. You don't know.
Well, we all know Meriwether Lewis did laudanum here, so.
All right, the first piece I'm going to be reading is from the first book put out with Spartan Press. It's the title poem entitled Rodeo of the Soul. I see egos run like wild horses, never knowing which way to turn and trampling over so much. Friends you've turned into false prophets make you want to run away to have a moment to yourself. Innocent stories cause you trouble when you tell them to people who haven't lived, as sense of humor is left in the cigarettes that apparently you can't smoke anymore. Someone call me as a dream as I dive in moonlit waves to let the world leave me be. I'll always feel for old Cherokee Street, but now I must search for somewhere I can go where no one knows my mask of shame. Rants come first, and poetry comes later. Bullets start wars as words try to end them. The rodeo of the soul tells you of divine mysteries, begging to be discovered. Where stars and wind flow through your hair as you search in the cracked windows of warehouse eyes for answers to questions that haven't been asked. Never letting yourself up only brings you down. Overwhelming silence is all you hear when it all comes crashing down. Hibernation is not allowed. Nation now more woke than a Spike Lee joint. After peace of mind comes peace of soul. So there's two poems I got tonight that I literally stole the titles from Tom Waits songs. And this is the first one. It's called There's a World Going On Underground. No one wants the crown since the last kings fell down. Some were slain, some took matters into their own hands. But ashes, ashes, well, you know the rest. Nowadays, everyone's striving to be just famous enough to get a free drink, or even be, dare I say, gas station famous. Devil's advocates make a hell of an argument when good friends got their backs turned. Desperate times call for desperate people. Green shirts still in the drawer. Romanticism, a novel concept. Old times becoming irrelevant but still held dear. It was the last light we had. Are you influenced by them? Well, I guess you're allowed to be here. Your shirt is your intelligence. Be careful of what your leaders do because the actions of strangers can take you down with them. The boys got a new name, and it's more ridiculous than the last. No one took them serious until the violence began, but I guess that's history for you. Political avoidance while trying to get a good buzz. Hummers on the sidewalk because money and endorphins are all you got going. Date, rape, punk band older than the rest of the crowd. It's all rumors, dude. It's people just want to start shit. Gaslighting for their own good is what was said so someone could sleep tonight. It was so much fun until the leeches came in, but nothing stays pure for too long. Idols fall by the wayside for fascism. Lead singers raise arms in allegiance. Rebels are outdated, so they got nothing to lose. So many want to join the party, but they were not invited. Sorry, niggas. It turned out to be a bust when the Red Death showed up. Teeth filed down to cut through and be remembered. Life more interesting when you find the deep cuts. Sex positive meets negative ends through a new coat of paint. And time you find the best moments were smoking outside because you needed to hear yourself think. And you accidentally said the right thing at the right moment. Everyone leaves when it gets too mainstream or too old to justify to yourself why you're there. Some may send word down the road to thank you for the good times. So this is the first time I've read poems where the people who I wrote about were actually in the room. This is actually about that trip out to Salina, Kansas back in 2019 with this gentleman, and it is entitled, well, what that event was. It's entitled Heart of the Heartland. Sun woke me up in beautiful Missouri country. Grass dances with the wind. Breakfast with Dorsey and Baldinger as cows in the distance sound pissed with each other. Gasconade River looks beautiful today. Our drive adds to the bug collection on the windshield. Everyday darkness watches narratives crumble. Missouri in bloom. Most outlaws aren't villains, they just have their own code. Dirt rises on gravel roads across the way while Highway 61 Revisited and Tupelo Honey blasts from a Saturn carrying 3 poets bound for Salina, Kansas. Drinking from a large bottle of sweet tea, confused for a 40 ounce. Rich houses by the highway show off isolation. K10 highway reveals beautiful lake as I read friends in books to keep me company. Hawks fly over the rolling hills and keep clear of dust devils. Tire track clouds spread thin enough to show the curvature of the earth. Passing the big rigs, smiling as I think about how truckers are the lifeblood of America.
Lumberjack.
Lumberjack. Forgot about lumberjack. How did I forget that?
Don't ever forget. It's like the Armenian Holocaust.
Sorry, I don't think the Armenian Holocaust has ever gotten a laugh.
There's a first time for everything. This is about the last time I went out to San Francisco. It's called California Feeling. Sunset Boulevard hopefuls all want discovery. Let the ocean wash them all away. Smoke splits blue sky as Gatsby eyes look down. A million different kinds of music blend with each other as a million languages laugh with each other. Books pass like peace pipes to sidewalk squatters. Don't you understand? We found the main nerve. Sundresses in winter dance to what remains of free love. Puppers only want to cuddle because no one understands unconditional love like dogs. Falling for flapper hat wearing hipster pixie dream girls that seem to be everywhere typing away on Apple computers. Drinking tea whilst I drink a mocha I could swear is just heated chocolate milk. The restless and derivative sell themselves in the great American script in elevators to anyone wearing a blazer with a decent haircut. Sunshine states don't know what to do with themselves when the sun goes down. Tired tears prep second wind. Daily grind soundtracks in mono like a one-track mind. California vibrations grow the world. Drink yourself drunk at Vesuvio and stumble down Jack Kerouac Way. Empathic hearts take blame and kiss with kindness all the same. Without love, the world is just another place. So, this is a short one, and it is called Almost. I get sick of people talking about almost, as though almost is a victory. I almost asked them out. I almost got that promotion. I almost went to that show. Okay. Well, I almost just scratched my balls a few seconds ago, but I didn't, and they still itch. Thank you. So this is that second poem that has the title from a Tom Waits song, and this is called "Buckle Down the Rumble Seat and Let the Radiator Boil." Making the run to Louisville, looking at the beautiful wilderness of Kentucky with Nashville in our sights. The sign for exit 43 barely holds itself together, and the speed limit has been blacked out. The sides of the road are left for the remains of rubber, steel, and glass. Old Southern soul music spreading the gospel at 80 miles an hour with autumn leaves hanging over the car. Blue exit signs and the fast food logos they show become faces in a crowd, along with every truck stop and every gas station you pass by. A million golden arches, a million days inns, a million lives you'll never meet, going towards their own ways as you wonder what becomes of those who work in the truck stops of America. The horizon is a coyote prankster, always changing its form. Looking upon a cove in the sky, right behind a lake, the frontier changes from the hills of abandoned mining towns to middle American farms with the Smoky Mountains just over yonder, and town centers that turned into strip malls. The radio dial searches for Westerberg, Parsons, Chilton, Clark, Prime, Zevon, maybe Towns, or Lucinda, or Willie, or Dolly, patron, saint, cosmic, American, singer, songwriter, poets, faded billboards with pictures of Yogi Bear promoted the nearest state park next to signs of adult bookstores. Following the Ohio River until it meets the Mississippi, Metropolis looks like Smallville, as small town America reeks of pot smoked by those who dream of getting out. So this is another short poem. I never thought I would write anything about the Star Wars trilogy.
I don't think that's true, Dan.
I tried hard, but I just couldn't break it. But one time,
always knew in your heart.
I thought I'd write about Indiana Jones, but never the original trilogy.
Right.
This is called Special Edition. And I'm sure all the poets here will kind of feel this a little bit. I used to be super critical of the Star Wars Special Editions and any other changes George Lucas made to a trilogy that was, in my mind, perfect. Then one day, I sent a poem out for publication. And 5 seconds later, I saw how I could improve it.
Yeah.
I'm not as critical anymore. So this is the one new one I got. This actually just got accepted into New York Parrot Collection, which I will be sharing pages there with John Dorsey. This is called A Whole Lot of Nothing. Whenever I see a familiar face, it is inescapable that we will ask about what the other has done since we last saw each other. And 9 times out of 10, the other person will say, nothing. It always strikes me as odd that people will give nothing as an answer so often. And in my mind, I will always focus on that as the conversation progresses. I'll imagine this person just sitting at a table when they're not at a job or going to bed, sitting contently, staring at a wall. If I know they have a partner and or kids, I'll imagine them staring at the wall with one of them saying, look at that wall. Fine wall. It's a nice wall to stare at. If I haven't seen the person in years, I'll even start to think that that wall might have something to it, if it was worth being stared at for years. I'll wonder if I maybe caught them the one time they decided to not stare at that wall, that they thought to themselves earlier in the day, you know what? Maybe there is more to life than that wall. But before they go out, they'll pet the wall to let the wall know that them going out has no reflection on the wonder of that wall. It always makes me wonder what they consider to be newsworthy. To me, everything is newsworthy. Having a family is newsworthy. Having a good job is newsworthy. And I say brag about it if I haven't seen you in forever. But to them, nothing ever is. Even if I know they traveled to Europe for a whole summer, if they performed brain surgery for the first time, or if they found the secret of eternal life, they would only mention it if someone else brought them up by saying, it was something I did. When the catching up is over, the pressure of getting on with our day will get the better of us. And this familiar face and I will make false declarations that, we need to catch up soon. That neither of us will ever fucking follow up on. And the truth of it is, both of us would be so much happier sitting at home doing a whole lot of nothing. I got two more left, and then we're going to send it over to John Dorsey, because I always say, start with your best foot forward and with the best of the bunch. And to me, there is no better poet in this country than John Dorsey right now. This next poem is something I wrote on the what would have been the centennial of Charles Bukowski. He was born August 16th, 1920.
That sounds right.
And I wrote this, and it's entitled No Bluebirds. Something tells me you would have hated your 100th birthday. No bars, no poems being lived. Only idiots and pretentious pricks like me thinking your thoughts for you an idol I never met. I know I wouldn't want to drink with you if you were still alive because there'd be so many others lined up to do so, including some who would feel entitled to that bragging right. I'm cautious to say your name out loud because saying it always attracts every asshole who never bothered to create but who loves to think they could create and who wastes the next 10 minutes of anyone's life talking about a novel they'll never write, a film they'll never make, who think the only way to live up to your reputation is to drink and fuck as much as possible. They never get it right because they never talk about the bluebird in their heart or about the beauty of another's fire. This last one is entitled Going Home on a Greyhound Bus. You see America in the bus depots, the downtrodden and temporarily impoverished millionaires who look down at those who accept the facts of life, flaunting a class they'll never be. Faded farmhouse windows in the sunset, wearing love like a long-lost crown. Hearing music from across the aisle, a sleepy man's headphones blast a beat that's too scared to take a risk. Just loud enough to keep me from focusing on my own slumber. Texas train calls in the distance. The rains make the land look like northern England with the fog covering the cell towers. Georgia peach license plates pass by, light flirtations with the woman sitting across from me, as a woman of almost 60 and her daughter get into an argument about how much the mother makes things up for the sake of a reaction. White arrows point the way to a million directions, boarding and reboarding left to be a riddle in a hot box. Streetlights reflect the shadows of the fallen rain, tired from their journey, so they decide to hitch a ride on the bus for as long as they could hang on. The post-rush hour highway still stream red and white lights going in opposite directions. Sweet southern breezes in Texarkana, anxieties comb over the realities of other lifetimes. Feeling my luck running out, getting home by the skin of my teeth, trying to keep texts with friends from turning into free therapy on both ends. I'm sure Memphis would look beautiful if I could see the early morning dark. Noticing as Carl's Jr.'s turn into Hardee's, but Relly's hasn't yet turned into Checkers. Clouds lifted. The stars in the country are always the most beautiful. The roads make me feel like a Ferlinghetti poem, a poetic guerrilla engaged in non-violent warfare to squeegee third eyes clean. Dawn's early light in the boot heel. Grass becomes golden for a moment, with the only sound being the snoring of passengers and the engine of the bus going in and out of sync with each other. So close to the victory of a journey's end I can taste it. Missouri plains will always let me know I'm on my way home. And then, there she is, my St. Louis. It may never be the greatest city in the world, but the people, the buildings, the history, though not without its faults, will always make it the greatest city to me. The Mississippi was right, and I am here in love, willing to dance with the cold autumn winds. A journey of love and a record of hope. As I go home, a spirit whispers, be sure to get back. I'll do my damnedest. Thank you, guys. Woo! That's all I got tonight. Thank you so much. We're going to close this evening out.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for damn right.
I've been drinking beer all evening.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, a person who I consider to be the greatest poet in America, no pressure, who is someone who I look up to, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Dorsey.
Now, Dan, you can go change that fucking shirt.
Oh, you know I will.
All right. I'm not going to read all these books, I swear to God. I swear to God. Yeah, I'd like to thank Dan for doing this. You know, this all started because Johnny told me she wanted to do reading in Missouri.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I pride myself on being able to hook up a reading anywhere in the United States. But in the pandemic, it has been difficult. Yeah. So bless you, Dan. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm going to depress you, just so you know. So given that, I'm going to start with a little poem that is not depressing. I decided a while ago that I wanted to create, I was going to do a whole book of things I wanted to do, like pandemic resolutions, kind of like New Year's, like kind of starting your life over. But you could see how like small my life is by this poem. It's a short list. It's a short list. This is called Pandemic Resolutions. Eat fried chicken from every gas station we pass on the highway. Buy more toilet paper. But okay, this is a newer poem. My dad was in the Army, and then I grew up in a trailer park, and you know, it was sort of the wrong side of the tracks. And my mother, who I love dearly, can be one of the most judgmental people on the planet. And this is about how how we can judge people and the negative effect it can have on the rest of their life, or how it can end their life. And so this is called For Paul Who Worships Satan and Dungeons and Dragons. And he didn't really worship Satan. He was just, people accused him of it, and he was one of the kindest people I've actually ever met. I never saw you dismember any animals, or play a record backwards to send our young souls to a dimension filled with fire. As far as I know, you didn't have a vinyl collection. All I remember is you being kind to the younger kids, walking them up from the bus stop to make sure they got home all right. But it was a crime to be quiet in 1984. Maybe if you'd spent less time smoking in the woods behind the trailer park, maybe you should have combed your hair or not worn a faded Black Sabbath t-shirt on the bus without regret. As you stared out the window, maybe you should have gone to church or listened when the news talked about how a fantasy game took lives. As if war and suburbia don't suck the air out of the room all by themselves. The least you could have done is finish high school and hang yourself from a tree in a different neighborhood. I'm trying to save the world a lot of trouble, and I rarely have romantic entanglements of any sort. But I sort of was dating a woman for a little bit earlier this year, and we had a conversation about how she'd like to have a child completely off the grid, like no social security number, no anything. And I was just like, well, don't look at me. But I wrote this for her. It's called Poem on Wanting a Wild Child. You're not wrong. We all want something we can hide from the world. Maybe I should have had a child instead of living vicariously through Peter Pan, with a few thin slices of paper tucked under my belt. But I remember sweaty nights that nobody can take away, that no longer seem to be enough. Let's see here. Yeah, I told you I'd fucking depress you. This is about a girl that I went to high school with who, like, 2 days after we graduated, she was diagnosed with MS, and she lost her eyesight, and then it came back, and then cruelly went away again, and we just were friends for a really long time. This is called Megan Can't See the River. Blind 6 months after we finished high school, with an illness that gives and takes away, I wonder where you are now. Did you ever get to teach a single class or rest your tired pom-poms along a quiet riverbank? These days I take stock of little things. In the morning I write a poem about making oatmeal as a tribute to the days when there was none. A few words buried, a faded picture taken by a river that never existed, a small price to pay for everything we leave behind. Hair flying out the car window, I close my eyes and you're gone. Whenever I read anything, I like to read a poem by another person, as well as my own, because it's not all about me, and in my better moments I know that, and so a lot of times I like to read a poem by a friend who's passed away, who can't be there to speak for themselves. And I'm going to read a piece by my friend Scott Wanberg, and if you like it, I have an envelope in my book bag of Scott Wanberg books Victor and I made last year, and you can have one. Anything that will get his work out, I'm good with. This is called Outside Influences. Enclose yourself. Pray they still love you. I hear them gnawing at whatever seems like a bone to them. Reiterate marrow. What the total finally costs. Move the lamp closer. Let me clarify a few dilemmas. Outside, all the influences cut each other up because they can afford the healthcare tab. The Savior couldn't be properly cast. They cut that character out of the mix. Watch the bombs go now. Watch them smile and pucker up. Outside, the influences are pulled over, frisked, asked to show ID. In the end, nothing really influences any of it. Somehow it just occurs. If not in a vacuum, then something then resembling one. Remember Cause and Effect, that vaudeville duo? You can find the recordings at swap meets. If Tennessee's Blanche truly depends on the kindness of strangers, she'll have to wait a while to gauge the temperature of the room. Some strangers are kind when it pays them to be. Some strangers are kind because they can't be anything else. Some strangers are deliberating whether it pays them to be kind, or if it's something they cannot be. These strangers are congregating in the backyard. Some of them are very hungry. Some of them need a drink. Some of them claim they are not strangers at all. And when the talk gets like this, it's best to be quiet, not say anything until your lawyer shows up. And if you don't have a lawyer, tell everyone simply that you are beyond and above the law, whatever subjective specific law they are arguing over, and show your scars and smile. And when they come to lock you up, tell them it's bad for your health and you need to keep it in shape in order to defend all outside influences against any impending horror that would destroy them. someone talked about, like, it was Johnny that talked about, Johnny Carey talked about writing a poem about someone in Toledo, and you're not in Toledo, so you can read that poem. I'm not really that respectful. I'll read it in front of anyone. But all the same, I'll read this poem that mentions my friend Nick Muska doing unsavory things.
Yes, he was once.
That sounds right.
Well, he would be so proud. So proud. And it's a true story. He can deny it if he wants to.
He won't.
No.
He would not.
He's probably written about it too.
This is it's called Degrees of Gray on Ashland Avenue. And if anyone's read Richard Hugo, his most famous poem is Degrees of Gray in Phillipsburg, which is in Montana. But he's one of my schoolgirl crushes in terms of poetry, so. Okay. You might come here looking for bones. Bob Brundage's smile winking, a gift from the moonlight, passing through the trees, beneath the roots he fought so hard for. Scott High School on the radio, and Chester's Fried Chicken, sold on the same corner, where I once saw Nick Muska search empty bus stops for a $5 blowjob on his birthday.
Yeah.
He had to make it quick, before the candles blew out on Ashland Avenue, where I once felt true joy walking home from Manhattan's to a room the size of a prison cell that cost me $75 and all the sanity I could spare. Where upward mobility meant spaghetti instead of ramen, shared with a punk rock girl on at least half a dozen off-brand antipsychotics. Where nobody has ever loved anyone as much as they thought possible at 16. Where the heart still aches, while we wait to ask the dead for their forgiveness before turning out the lights. I'm going to read this poem for Tim Tarkelly because he likes the poem, and Jason Baldinger and I experienced this. We were in a automotive car care center in a Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
And we were there. Yeah, he knows. He knows.
I remember that now. All right.
We do. We have this. Jason and I have this joke that every downward woman in the state of Missouri is secretly named Tammy, and it seems to be pretty true. And I wrote a bunch of little Tammy poems, and I just wrote a new one called Tammy and the Swamp People, which I have to show you. But
I have a few that I need to finish.
but this is called Tammy Practices the Art of Negotiation in Rolla, Missouri. A weary mechanic walks into the waiting area of a Walmart automotive center. He shakes his head at Tammy as he tells her that he can't patch her tire again, that it's more patch than rubber at this point. Wiping sweat from his forehead, he says it's a lot like a broken heart. Some things just can't be fixed until you let them die on their own. When he tells her they can get her a used tire for $58, all of the air seems to go out of her face. And there is no patch for that either. She gets on her cell phone, small child by her feet, playing with a plastic dump truck as if predicting his working class future. She negotiates a blowjob with an ex-boyfriend, playing with her dirty blonde hair, pretending to giggle as she fights back tears, pretending that tires will always get you where you want to go.
Oh, that's great.
All right, and I'm just going to read like 3 or 4 more poems. I wrote these poems. I was in a town called Moscow, Kansas, probably like 6 years ago. And there was a beautiful girl in this little convenience store, and it was such a bland place, and she was the only beautiful thing for miles to me. And the store was even called The Store. So I started writing these poems about like the prettiest girls to me, like and pretty, I mean inside and out, like whatever, like your redeeming qualities, like if you're a beautiful person. Like I started writing these poems, and I wrote this book called The Prettiest Girl at the Dance, which came out last year. But I'm going to read a poem. I wrote this for my friend's 9-year-old daughter, and they used to live in Waterville, Ohio. So this is the only poem that's really about a girl, per se, like a little girl. But this is called The Prettiest Girl in Waterville, Ohio. The prettiest girl in Waterville, Ohio, has an aging dog whose eyes can only see into the past. It can barely get around, but is always by her side. She carries a weathered Candyland board that rarely takes her anywhere she doesn't want to go. She sits in the grass, throwing out an old tennis ball as the sun goes down and the lights switch on in the Little League field beside her house. She can hear the dog's tail wagging in the dirt as they listen for the quiet buzzing of fireflies swooning madly in their hearts. And that is for anyone who thinks I can't be sentimental. There it is. Read one more out of here. I grew up around Pittsburgh in that general region. Jason knows I'm a phony. I'm not really from Pittsburgh, but that general area.
Greensburg is close enough, man.
Yeah, but this was, I was reading this the other day. I think I was in Kennywood, which is a big amusement park in Pittsburgh, or I was at some carnival. But this is a true story. So the prettiest girl in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The prettiest girl in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania hands me a stuffed blue dog at a carnival, saying it matches my eyes. It's been over 30 years, and still no smile can measure up to hers. No moonlight was meant to go on this long, unrequited.
Oh, that's so
Let's see here. I'll read another sentimental poem. This is for my best friend Rebecca. We've known each other since we were basically children, more or less. She is like the best woman I think I've ever known.
Pronounce her last name for me.
Shemita.
Shemita.
Yeah. Her and my mom, they are the best ladies I've ever known in my life. She used to live in Kingston, New York, and I cannot pronounce the name of the new town she lives in. They use every letter of the fucking alphabet. So I wrote this. It's The Prettiest Girl in Kingston, New York. The prettiest girl in Kingston, New York can drink you under the table with her gin and tonics boiling Nathan's hot dogs at 3 a.m. because she can't cook anything else. And you love her for it. Laughing until the sun comes up, arm in arm, knowing you will always love her for it. Literally 2 poems, I promise you, and I will be concluded here. I'm getting some sweat in my eyes, so I'm going to have to conclude soon. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I feel like Rocky Balboa, and you're helping me out here. Get in there, Rock.
Sex weakens the knees, kid.
Switch to southpaw.
My head.
Over the
Pull
top.
them all set
That's
together.
right. Over the top.
Yeah, there it is. All right. Oh, there we go. I think I'll read this one instead. I didn't intend to read it, but I will. All right. I'm dating myself here, like being of a certain age, but I'm sure that some of you in the room know who Adam Walsh was. And he was a boy, much like my own age, in 1981, who was abducted and killed. And his father, John Walsh, created America's Most Wanted. And after I wrote this poem, I wrote to John Walsh for a little while. We had a little correspondence, and he liked the poem. And I'm just going to read it. I'll take my bifocals off. Sorry about the bifocals, Dan. I'm old.
45, it does it to you, man. Something about 45.
I've had them longer than that. I just have bad
I'm still
eyes.
fighting.
All right. The way things were in 1981. In 1981, I had a peach dragon sleeping bag that resembled the Alamo. Back then, I threw kisses at the wind as a form of prayer. Sometimes I wish I could go back there with a flashlight. 5 years old. I'd take a bus to Hollywood, Florida. Adam Walsh and I would go roller skating through the aisles of heaven. And I would ask him, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whatever he chose, I would be proud of him. And I would remind him not to talk to strangers. I would say that I was from the future. And that when I looked into his eyes, all I could see was a ghost clutching a rosary. Back then, I remember thinking that the local newscaster was the president. He always looked so serious. That was the year my mother took me to the movies for the first time. And my dad bought me a comic book in Niagara Falls on a family vacation. I didn't tell them that you were the reason that I feared going into department stores. And that I once saw an angel on the side of a Walmart ringing a Salvation Army bell that looked a lot like you. And that I was always afraid that they'd steal the stars out of the sky with a butterfly net. Because I always wanted to name one after you. It always felt like we were brothers. Only you were an invisible celebrity and I was a nameless boy. I bet your mother still cries some nights, howling in the wind, where I left those boyhood kisses. I hope they comfort you now. In 1981, I believed that seeing was believing. But now the most powerful things in the world seem to be invisible. And now as I listen by my window, garbage trucks rumble like the shadows of invisible gods. Their music offering blessings to both the quick and the dead. You know, being in here right now reminds me of like when I started doing readings, I used to carry an extra t-shirt because I would sweat through it routinely. And man, I should have brought one today.
Dan might have one.
I think Dan,
full of them.
you know, I think Dan's kind of used up in that category there.
I can give you one of my damn right I read Dan Wright shirts.
I will take one of those to go, sir.
Can you freeze it?
Well, it's a Dunaway book, so it probably is more air conditioned than here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I was going to read a particular poem that I can't locate at this point in time here. Alright. So, instead of trying to read a long poem that I can't, for the life of me, fucking find, I'm just going to end with a shorter, funny poem that I've always liked. And it is, it's insensitive. I'm insensitive. It's okay.
Read it.
Yeah, when I was much younger, I was on leave from go to college. I spent about 6 months working as a job trainer for the Association for Retarded Citizens, and it was it's the best job I've ever had. It's the most fulfilling job I've ever had, and of course they don't pay you shit. But we had a girl in there who kept telling us that she had been to Hollywood and she was a TV star, and I'm like, yeah, fucking right, man. You're not. And some more of that Tim Tarkelly gobbledygook jokes. But as it turns out, I was wrong, and she had been on television, and so I wrote this poem. This is called When Becky Was in Hollywood. Becky walked in wearing giant heart-shaped sunglasses. It was the summer of 1999, and I was on leave from the university and was teaching mentally challenged people how to wire fluorescent lighting panels and place labels on dented soup cans. All summer, she kept talking about her days as a TV star. I didn't believe any of it and really just wanted her to shut the fuck up. One day, one of the clients threw a metal rod at my head because I wouldn't let him have a juice box before lunch. Later, I found out that first he had killed his bird, Then he had killed his dog, and then his parents, and had been sent to us only after a nearby mental hospital had gotten shut down. As I walked into the break room, hands shaking, I noticed Becky's image beaming across the flickering black and white TV screen. There she was, 10 years younger, on an episode of Full House as Michelle's retarded friend. Tomorrow, if she asked me if she could have juice before lunch, I would say sure. What the hell? Have some animal crackers too. After all, she deserved the star treatment.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Mr. John Dorsey. Thank you so much, everyone who has shown up. I know some of you all are going to be driving straight to Bell, but for as long as you can be here, drink booze, be merry, make conversation, do whatever you got to do. Thank you guys so much. Love you all. Thank you so much for making this evening as wonderful as it is.
And
Thank you,
Dan, I'm going to be the crass capitalist and mention what you didn't. And if you want to buy books, they're here.
Yes.
Yes, people have them.
Get it together, Dan. Come on, man.
Too many beers. I'm going to go turn the music on.
Do it.